bored a hole in the wall to steal light.
凿壁偷光。
Hello everyone. Have you ever wanted something so badly that you could almost taste it, but there was just one big wall standing right in your way? Let me tell you a story about a boy who faced that wall every single night. His name was Quang Heng, and he lived in a tiny village over 2,000 years ago. If you walked past his house, you might not even notice it. It was made of old clay and worn-out wood. The roof leaked when it rained, and the wind found its way through every gap. Inside, there was barely anything. A rough mat for sleeping. A few broken pots. And one thing that didn't belong there, a small pile of books. Quang Heng's family were farmers. From the moment the sun came up until it dipped below the hills, he was in the fields. His hands were rough from pulling weeds and carrying water. His back ached from bending over dry soil. But here is the thing. His mind was never in the dirt. His mind was somewhere else entirely. It was floating in the stories he had read or heard whispered by travelers. He had this hunger. You know the kind, right? That feeling when you discover something fascinating and you just need to know more. For him, it was the written word. He craved it like food. But there was a problem, a huge one. When night fell, the world inside his home went completely black. No candles. No oil for a lamp. Nothing. Just thick, heavy darkness pressing down on his shoulders. His neighbors had a little bit of light. They could sit around a flickering candle and talk or do small chores. Quang Heng could only sit in the dark and listen to the faint sounds of their life through the wall. He would hold his book. He could feel the weight of the bamboo slips tied together with rough string. He could run his fingers over the carved characters. But he could not see them. It was a special kind of torture for a boy who loved learning. Imagine holding your phone with a great video queued up but the screen is dead. That's how he felt. Night after night. Week after week. Most kids might have given up. They would have said, well, I guess I can't read until I'm rich enough for a candle. But Quang Heng wasn't most kids. Desperation makes people clever. It makes you look at the world a little differently. You start seeing things that other people miss. One evening, he was sitting there in the usual darkness. He was probably tracing the outline of a character on his knee, just to feel its shape. And then he saw it. A tiny glimmer on the wall. It was almost nothing. Just a pinhole where the clay had crumbled away. And through that hole, a sliver of golden light was cutting through the darkness of his room. It was coming from his neighbor's house. Just a few feet away, they had a candle burning. The wall between them was old and cracked. That tiny beam of light felt like a secret message meant only for him. His heart must have started beating really fast. He crept closer to the wall. He put his eye up to the hole and saw the neighbor's room. He saw the candle. He saw the warm glow. And he saw his own dirty hand in the dark. He had a choice. He could just sit there and enjoy that one tiny dot of light on his floor. Or he could do something about it. He looked around for a tool. His family didn't have much, but there was a small, rusty iron stick used for moving kindling in the dead stove. He picked it up. He was careful. Very careful. He didn't want to knock a huge chunk out of the wall and make a noise that would scare the neighbors or, worse, make them put out the candle. He just scratched softly at the edges of that pinhole. Scratch. Scratch. The sound was barely louder than a mouse walking. Dust fell to the floor. The hole grew from a pinhole to the size of a grain of rice. More light came through. He kept going. The size of a bean. Now a thin stream of light fell on his chest. He could see his own ragged collar. He kept scraping. His fingers were cramped. Sweat was on his forehead even though the night was cool. He was so close. Finally, the hole was about the size of a small coin. He stopped. He didn't want to go too far. He didn't want to destroy the wall or get caught. He just wanted enough light to read. He sat back down on the dirt floor. He picked up his book. He opened it right where that beam of light landed. And he read. Word by word. Line by line. The light was only enough to show a few characters at a time. He had to move the heavy bamboo scroll slowly across his lap. By the time he read the bottom of the slip, the top was dark again. So he would slide it back up. And read it again. And again. Until the words were burned into his memory. It was slow. Painfully slow. But it was progress. And that's all that mattered. He did this every night. As long as the neighbor's candle burned, Quang Heng's light shone. He became a creature of the night. During the day, his body worked the fields. At night, his soul flew through history and poetry by that stolen beam. But there was another wall waiting for him. This one was even harder to break. He ran out of books. In those days, you couldn't just go to a library or download a free sample on your tablet. Books were handmade. They cost a fortune. If you were a poor farm boy, owning a book was like owning a piece of gold. Most families with books kept them locked away. They were heirlooms. So Quang Heng faced a second darkness, not the lack of light, but the lack of words. He thought about it for a long time. He heard about a man in the next village. A wealthy man who had chests full of books. The man was known to be a bit gruff. Not mean, just busy and not interested in beggars. Quang Heng walked miles to his estate. He didn't ask for a handout. He asked for a job. The wealthy man looked at the skinny, dusty kid and asked what he wanted for pay. Kwang Heng said something that surprised him. I don't want money. I just want to read your books. The man laughed at first. He thought it was a joke. Who works for free just to read? But then he looked at the boy's eyes. There was no trick there. Just pure, raw want. The man had seen workers who wanted silver. He had seen merchants who wanted land. But he had never seen anyone hungry for words. He agreed. Kwang Heng worked hard in that house. He swept floors. He carried water. He did whatever was asked. And when the work was done, he was allowed to sit in the corner of the study with a book. He didn't steal that light. He earned it. Over the years, he read through that entire library. History, philosophy, poetry. He soaked it all in. And that knowledge changed his life. He didn't just stay a farm boy who could read. He became a thinker. Someone who understood the world beyond the fields and the walls. Eventually, people came to him for advice. And then bigger people came. People with power. He advised the emperor on matters of state and culture. The boy who scraped a hole in the wall ended up shaping the empire. All because he saw a crack and refused to let it stay just a crack. We talk a lot about walls in our lives. The wall of not having enough time. The wall of not having the right connections. The wall of not having the right accent or the right school on your resume. It feels solid. It feels permanent. But Kwang Heng's story whispers something else. It says that walls are often older and more brittle than we think. There is always a crack. There is always a place where the clay has dried out and crumbled. And if you look hard enough, and if you are willing to put in the slow, quiet work of scraping away at it, you can find your light. You don't need to tear down the whole building. You just need a hole big enough for a few words at a time. And those words, they add up. Those minutes of stolen light add up. They become hours. They become years. They become a life that looks completely different from the one you started with. So tonight, when it gets dark, don't just curse the darkness. Look at the wall. See if there's a glimmer. And if there is, start scraping. Thanks for spending this time with me. Keep finding your light.
下集请移步主页观看。